Hello and welcome back to Grim Survival. I'm back. Today is August 19th, 2019. I am making the first video I've made in probably about 4 days or so. Been on vacation, took a nice 4-day weekend, and had a nice holiday. It was very enjoyable not to be at work, but here I am again, and I don't like it, but have to do it. Slavery at its finest, right? Being at work every day, because if you don't work, you don't eat. I guess it's a biblical concept too, because in the Bible it says the same, although I don't think their concept of work involved being in a truck for 12 to 14 hours a day, 60 and 70 hours a week, 5 to 6 days a week, because that to me is more slavery than it is work. But anyway, that's not the point of the video. Point of the video today is surviving the system. I'm thinking of the title right along those lines is how to survive the system. And the concept I'm going to present to you today is basically what I'm taking from it is everybody, preppers and survivalists, even some of the bushcraft people, always prepare for grid down scenarios. If there's a collapse, like an economic collapse, if there's a grid down scenario where power is out, if this, if that. So I wanted to go a little bit in a different direction. Basically, the opposite of that, in my opinion, is how do you survive the system if it doesn't collapse? And this is one thing people do not really prepare for, in my opinion. And what I mean by the system, I guess, is government system, government dependency. And when I say government dependency, I mean upon everything. Even the food that you get today is still dependent on the system. It's dependent on the trucks rolling, the fuel coming in, the grid being up and all that. But that is still a dependency, because if you do not submit to the system, you cannot be a part of the system, in my opinion. So it is forced slavery, really. But a lot of people don't see it that way because they're just oblivious. And even the people that aren't oblivious, some of them still don't see it that way. But I guess surviving the system is going to be, I might title the video that or something similar to that. I'm not above clickbait titles, so if you get one of those, you know, I don't mind. But anyway, surviving the system. Basically, in a scenario that doesn't occur, you know, there's no EMP, there's no economic collapse, or at least it's limited economic collapse, because I do believe we are experiencing something like an economic collapse globally right now. If you watch any kind of news or read any kind of headlines, which I have been doing a little bit here and there, mainstream and what I consider to be real news, things on YouTube from certain people and websites that I've been suggested that I read, and people that I watch that people have told me about, really, it's word of mouth kind of things. And I watch most of that for my news and information. Sometimes I just completely ignore everything for, you know, weeks on end where I don't know anything that's going on. I do know there's been shootings and things like that, Texas and other places that, you know, I'm not going to go into all that. But surviving the system is the point of the video today. So basically, if nothing happens, if the grid doesn't go down and we continue how we're going today. Now, this is scientifically proven that if we continue how we are today, that eventually there's not going to be enough for everybody. We are looking at 7 billion people on this planet right now, and that number continues growing. And if I remember the studies I've read correctly, it was somewhere around the 7 to 9 billion mark that where we are using too much of our resources. We don't have enough for everybody. Currently, we have enough for everybody, but we don't share with everybody, because there are a lot of people that are starving all over the planet. There's a lot of people that just don't have enough water, don't have enough food, don't have enough shelter, etc. There's people that just don't have. They go without. People die every day of starvation in other countries. People die every day of starvation in the United States. You just don't know it because nobody talks about it, but it does happen. So it's not that we don't have enough resources for everybody, we just don't have the willingness to share. So, yeah. And, you know, I don't mean this as an attack on certain people, but anytime you see somebody who's very obese, obviously they're not sharing with the poor person they're walking past. You know, if you ever see something like that, I see it every day. I see homeless people standing on the side of intersections when I get on and off of interstate highways. I see it every single day. Sometimes I see the same people every day. Sometimes I see different people, but every single day I've seen one. Even in pouring down rain, I've seen them standing out there with signs saying they need help. And every single day I see someone in a vehicle who is a lot bigger than me, who probably has the same amount I do, or less than I do, or maybe even more than I do, and they don't share. I do give things to homeless people when I can, but I can't always do it because I prefer my kids to eat personally. And that may sound bad, but that's just how it is. And you just can't. A lot of people can't. But if you see somebody who's so very overweight, with a McDonald's bag in their car that they just paid $7 for that one meal, when I could have went to the grocery store and paid $7 for a week's worth of meals. I mean, this isn't going to be a good meal. This is hot dogs and bologna, but still, I could eat for a week off $7. I really could. Also, because I'm so very incredibly skinny. I mean, literally, this thing was 6.5 inches. That's how small my wrist is. I can still do this, and I have small hands, so keep that in mind. And like I said, I'm not trying to attack anybody who's obese or eats too much. And do what you're going to do. It's not my place to judge. The Lord did not put me on this planet to judge people. That's up to you. But when you see things like that, you know that something is not right here. So you know that, you know, one person has more, another person doesn't. And this is like a socialist concept of everybody should be equal. No, you really shouldn't. You should get what you work for, because that's what I do. I get what I work for, and I work 16, 70 hours a week, like I said. So I have what I work for. I really did earn what I have. So earn what you have. But if you're standing on the side of the road holding a sign, you're homeless, and the fat guy passes you and isn't sharing you with the 3 Big Macs he has in his bag over there, he's not giving you one of them. Sure, but does he have to? No, he doesn't have to. But should he? Probably should. But also, as a homeless person standing on the side of the road, McDonald's is hiring. Go take a shower at a truck stop. You can get one for free. You really can. Go get a free shower at the truck stop. Go put in an application at McDonald's. Live in a box where you already live under a bridge. Whatever. Live next to the McDonald's if that's what your choice is, and go to work. Because then at least you have a job. And eventually, if not immediately, you will find a place that you can rent, either a room. I can rent a room right now for $200 a week. I can rent a room for $200 a month if I really don't mind the living conditions. But if you live under a bridge, it's a step up. Anyway, point of the video was not homeless people. Point of the video is surviving the system. How do you survive the system? In my opinion, this is what's going to happen if we continue the way we are. There is not going to be enough resources. There isn't enough right now if you count all the people who don't share, but there is definitely not going to be enough for just your everyday people. And you're already seeing food shortages, portion sizes are being decreased, fuel prices are going up, prices of apples is like $3 for 3 apples now. I mean, I could get a bag of apples this time last year, a whole bag for $3, probably a dozen apples or more in that bag, and now I can get 3 apples for the same price. Prices are going up. So how do you survive this? How are we going to survive the system? My opinion, the food preps and all that things that we do is not going to save us. If your plan is, and it's a very good plan, prepare at least a year's worth of food for everyone in your house. You have that year's supply of food in your house so that you can survive a winter and get you to the next growing season where you have your seeds stockpiled and you can start growing your own food. This is a good plan. This is the plan that most preppers will recommend. Sustainable food sources. How are you going to resupply yourself after a grid down situation, after you've used all your food supplies and all your stocks? How are you going to resupply? You're going to have to create, grow, produce your own food. Livestock, grow your own food, get your own animals, raise whatever it is. Hunting, fishing are kind of there, but it's not a good plan because of how many people there are. I've mentioned this before. It's been mentioned in several videos from several people. The Great Depression era, white-tailed deer, rabbits, squirrels, possums. I mean, anything that was catchable and killable and edible was almost extinct by the end of it. Almost. I mean, you're lucky you still have deer in this country. Just saying. So, how are you going to survive this? You're going to grow your own food, right? That's the plan. Okay, so you're growing a nice big garden in your front yard. If you live in a suburb, or even if you live out in the country, you have a nice big garden. There are 7 billion people on this planet. Hundreds of millions of people. In any vicinity where you are, even if you're out in the country, there is a minimum of 100,000 people within walking distance of you. Guaranteed. Unless you're in the middle of the desert or on top of a mountain, there are 100,000 people, at least, within walking distance of you. And what is walking distance? In my opinion, within 20 miles. That is a walking distance, because I can walk a single day 20 miles in one day without a backpack or with an empty backpack easily. Now, I can do it with a 30-pound pack, but I'd be in pain by the end of it, of course, but I could do it. I have a lot of endurance. I proved it to myself many times. So, to me, 20 miles a day is within walking distance. So if you're growing this garden, what's to stop 50, 60, 70, 100 people coming and sitting outside your garden until your tomatoes are ripe and picking them off there? They'll even take them green and start eating them. I mean, and this is just one thing that you can grow, of course, but still. So you're not going to have enough food for everybody. Everybody's going to be fighting for food. This is, the system's still up, okay? This is, food shortages is still in the system. The system's still up, government's still operating. So what's going to happen is you're going to end up with martial law. You're going to have food rationing. You're going to have fuel rationing. You're going to have everything that you have and you need is going to be regulated by government officials, authority figures, and people with guns. They're going to go door to door. They're going to take your food preps. They're going to take your guns. They're going to take your ammunition. There's plans in place for this right now. They already intend to do it. You think the government is planning for grid down. They are not. They're planning for grid up, where they have to take your stuff because they don't have enough. That is the plan of the government right now. So, how do you survive the system? I mean, we've prepared for the system to go down. A lot of us actually hope the system goes down. Personally, if the system went down right now, would it be hard for me? Yes, it would be very difficult for me, my family, my kids. I mean, do we have a year's supply? If we ration, we could make it last. We really could. But it's not going to happen. Food, I mean, if it doesn't happen, if the power doesn't go out and the grid doesn't go down, I have to resupply my food. So I still have to, rotate it out. I'm still using my rice here in about 5 years. I'm still going to have to eat it. But now, after I've eaten it, I can't go to the store and get any more rice. And I can't grow food in my front yard because the government said no, or the local, kids keep getting into it and stealing the stuff, or the neighbor comes by when you're sleeping and taking stuff. Now, sure, you can set up a sentry, have somebody sit out there with a gun. You're going to shoot your neighbor, the cops are going to come arrest you. The system's still up. You can't shoot your neighbor for stealing your food. You can call the cops and they can go tell them, whoa, don't do that no more. But your food's gone already. I mean, what are you going to do about it at that point? So you can't survive the system that way. It's government food rationing is what's going to happen. You're going to have long lines at certain places, like grocery store type areas, food banks, food pantries, whatever, that you're going to have to go and stand in. Only the richest of the rich people are going to have, the pass to go to the front of the line, or the pass to go to the food bank that you don't know about. So how are you going to survive the system if it doesn't go down? How are you going to survive? You have to still get food. You still have to get water. And it's inevitable. It will happen that there are 7 billion people on the planet. I mean, it's going to happen. The number keeps going up. By 2020, I think it was, 2025, somewhere around, it's very close. It's within 5 to 10 years. We're going to shoot the number is just going to go up. There's going to be so many people that there's just not enough to go around. Even if everybody was sharing equally, there's not enough. People are going to start starving to death. People in this country starve to death already because there's just not enough to go around if nobody shares, which people don't. So, and I keep repeating the same thing over and over again, but that's just how it is. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. This is the system as it stands. There's not enough. There's not going to be enough food. There's not going to be enough water. There's not going to be enough oil. There's not going to be enough gas. There's not going to be enough wood to heat your house if you're, banking on wood for winter and stuff like that, because everybody's going to need it at some point. And you think natural gas and electricity and all that, if the grid's not going down, sure, but look at Texas right now. They're already having brownouts, blackouts, and they're predicting a whole lot more. They're trying to build new power plants. This is an article I read like 2 or 3 days ago. I was bored for a minute and I read it. So they're already experiencing this in several places. They're just the first ones to admit it, but it's happening in California, Texas, and all over the United States, Canada, and Mexico. There's just not enough power for as many people. And the hotter it gets, the more we run air conditioning units, the more we're using the power, the less there is to share, because it's just not, it's not infinite. We don't have infinite power. Nobody has created a fusion system where it just gives you free energy forever and ever and ever. That is not possible. Well, it might be possible, but they're not going to tell you that because they can't make money off of it. So, it might be possible. So, don't get me wrong. I'm pretty sure it probably is possible. But whatever. Point of the matter is I don't think any prepper or any survivalist has ever even considered the concept of surviving the system if it continues the way it's going right now. How do you survive it? Can you survive it? Can you live with martial law and food rationing? Can you stand in a line for your food with the credits you earn from whatever meaningless job that you work or have worked? Because that's the way it's going to go. Your money's going to collapse. It's going to happen, but that doesn't mean that the whole grid's going to fall apart because of it. That doesn't mean that the government's going to go out of business, because the government really is a business, but they're not going out of business. So, okay, economic collapse happens. Sure. You have no more money. Your money's worthless. So now you have to go to a food bank to get food, but you can only get food because somebody gave you a piece of paper that said you worked enough for your food that day. That's the system. That's the system that we're heading for. You're going to get there. You're going to get there within my lifetime, within your lifetime. We're talking 5 to 10 years, guaranteed. But a lot of people are predicting this by next year because of the food shortages we're already experiencing. Okay. Food shortages and economic collapse. Just because it happens doesn't mean the system goes down. That just means they're going to regulate you even more. Food rationing, fuel rationing. It's coming. It is coming. It's already happening in some parts of the world, but it is coming. How do you survive the system? We've already established that your preps are going to run out. You're not going to be able to go back to the store. We've already established that even if you grow food and even if you have cattle, at some point, even the government's going to realize that you're doing it, and they're going to come regulate that too. They're going to add that to their stockpile, and they're going to ration your food that you grew and your animals that you raised between you and everybody in your community. It's not just for you anymore. They took it. Your guns and your ammunition. Are you going to fight for your food? I mean, unless you have an army to fight the United States government, I don't think so. And sure, there's one police officer for every 1,000 people. So if you have, 2,000 people in a small town and they have 2 small town sheriffs, sure, you could overcome them. You could definitely overcome them. As a matter of fact, they'd probably join you in help. Okay, so now they're going to send in the National Guard, and you're going to have 1,000 soldiers with M4s and M16s and grenade launchers and explosives, and they're going to be standing at your door telling you that they are now taking over your garden. You're growing your food for them. If you don't submit everything you grow, and they're going to come by and check it, then you're going to get in trouble. You're going to end up in some kind of facility, probably a FEMA-type camp or a prison cell, or you will just be executed because there's just not enough food to feed you at this point. Doesn't mean the system went down. Just means that you're no longer a part of it because you were rebelling. You didn't give them your resources so they could be split. Socialism really is. But, hey, that's it. So, I've been thinking about this for days and days and days. How do I survive the system? My only answer is pray to God and hope it doesn't come to this. Because what would be better, really? I mean, this is what you got to ask yourself. Would it be better for an EMP to just shut it all down and start over? Would it be better for the government to be abolished and just be gone and martial law and just, everybody for themselves? Would it be better to continue as we are in the system, knowing that it is coming to a point that where it will not be able to sustain everybody? There's going to be rationing. I mean, you're going to be dependent on the government. You will be forcefully, if you're not already working a 70-hour-a-week job like I am and realize that you're a slave, you will realize it then because you're going to be working 60 and 70 hours a week. Then you're going to stand in line for them to hand you a meal that you probably don't like, that you probably won't even eat because you're taking it home to your children because they can't work. Your working age, if you look at history in other countries, if you're old enough to pick up a rock, you're old enough to work. Yeah, so your kids are going to work too at some point. Alright, this video's run on long enough, but I really don't have an answer for you. How do you survive the system? I really can't answer it because at some point government regulations are just going to eliminate every freedom you have. Whether you believe it or not, if the system continues as it is, you are going to be put into forced labor. If you're medically ill and cannot work, then you're probably just not going to eat. And that's about as grim as it's going to get for me today. If you can't work for your food, you're not going to get it. Government's dependency, welfare, and Social Security, it can't last. It can't. Do the math on it. Look at the stats from it. I mean, just do the math. It won't last forever. So, preparing to survive the system. Good luck. I need it because I don't have a clue. Alright, that's enough for me today. Everybody have a good day. I will try to make more videos this week. Wish me luck. This one's probably one of the longest videos I've ever made, but I could rant and rave on this all day long for hours and hours. Good luck surviving the system if you can.